and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
The original alternate here at F4WOnline.com. It is the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare.
You can't imagine how much fun we're having. Stop it there without a care to what you got to fear. Keep it all between your beer and your hockey gear.
Turn your radio up.
I can't believe that there's a nightmare on my street. Big Japan, alright, baby, I sleep by your side. It's the reason when you're big in Japan. Oh, you're big in Japan.
Hello out there, we're on the air.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare. I am Adam Summers, not joined by Mike Sempervive this week. Mike is on assignment and will, in all likelihood, join us on next week's episode, but felt like it was necessary to bring a show to you because, boy, a lot has changed since we last talked. Not just in the world of professional wrestling, which has certainly seen a lot of upheaval over the last couple of weeks, but in the world at large. I am currently recording this show, talking to you from my apartment in Chicago, Illinois, where the circumstances certainly are different than the last time you heard my voice. As of tonight, we cannot go to bars or restaurants. Pretty much everything is shut down or on the way. Everyone who can work from home is. And yeah, it's a different world. I'm certainly not complaining in terms of the things being closed, and I'm thrilled that they are. My only complaint or my only thought on that is that what's happening now, if I can editorialize a little bit here in the U.S., should have happened at least a week or so earlier, because the scenes we saw in Chicago of thousands of people, mostly young people, out reveling, celebrating at bars, and just all over the city in close proximity to each other this past Saturday. Not good, considering what we're dealing with COVID-19, with the coronavirus, and how it spreads. So I guess I would say, and I know we have listeners all around the world, so there are people that are listening to the show right now who are in the midst of the worst when it comes to this outbreak. Some who are in countries who have maybe seen the worst of it already, and then we have a lot of listeners here in the U.S. as well who are bracing for, what's happening, and more so what's to come over the next week or so. So I guess if I have any advice, or if I have anything in the very little reach that this show may or may not have, or that my voice would have, or any influence, but if you do not have to go outside, don't. If you don't need to gather in large groups, don't. If you can stay home and just chill out and relax, watch some old wrestling on NJPW World, watch some stuff on the WWE Network if that's your thing, dig deep into your own personal archive of DVDs, which I am definitely going to be doing over the next little while. If you can do any of those things, please do that, because I don't know. The less you go out, the better a chance it is that the people you care about, or just people in general who we should all care about, have a better chance of making it through all this. So with that said, we'll get into the show proper, or as normal of a show as we can be doing right now, or into the foreseeable future. I will say, I hope you can notice an improvement in sound quality on this show. I took the plunge and bought some better, dare I say, professional podcasting equipment. So I am hopeful that it sounds better. This is my first time using it, so it'll be a little bit of trial and error, and I can fine tune this thing even more. But hopefully we're at a point to where it sounds better than it had been sounding the last few shows. So with that, we'll get into the news such as it is in Japan. Not a lot in terms of good news yet as far as future shows when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. The entirety of the New Japan Cup, as I'm sure you well know, is off. The first half of shows in March were canceled, and we were all waiting, hoping, probably a little naively, thinking that there was a possibility that the second half of the New Japan Cup could be run, that we could get in a version, of the tournament that was somewhat closely approximated to what we thought it was going to be. But that clearly is not going to be the case. So, we're, from a wrestling standpoint, which again, not the most important thing in the world, but from a wrestling standpoint, we're missing out on some incredible first round matches. We missed out on Will Ospreay and Shingo Takagi. We're also not going to have the anniversary shows we talked up before. That was canceled, so we don't get Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi. And a whole host of other matches, Kota Ibushi and Zack Sabre Jr., just to name another one that people were greatly looking forward to. But again, for all the right reasons, that shows aren't happening. But in absence of that, if you're a subscriber of New Japan World, you've noticed a few things. First, they are going back and for the first time in a long time, filling some of the holes and addressing some of the backlog in the archives. Obviously, there's still a long way to go, but there's some pretty intriguing things that have been posted. If you've not been paying attention, or you've kind of let your New Japan subscription, you're still subscribing, but you've let it lapse a little bit. There's some really, really good stuff that's been uploaded. Some older stuff and some stuff that's a lot newer. Some really good junior tag title matches from the early part of, I guess you would say now, last decade. Particularly some Apollo Go-Go matches that if you got into New Japan a little bit later, absolutely worth going out of your way to watch. The Golden Lovers Apollo Go-Go match from I believe it's from 2011. That is up. Also the Apollo Go-Go versus Taichi and Takuma Shinoku, that is up. Just a few examples of matches that have been uploaded. Also, if you've never seen the Minoru Suzuki Hiroshi Tanahashi IWGP title match that Dave has talked about a lot, we've talked about it quite a bit. Really a match that historically important in a few ways. First, that it was the main event of the first live New Japan IW at the time, or internet pay-per-view, I guess you would call it. And secondly, just because it's a completely unique match, a great match, one of the best matches of either guy's careers. There's not a single pinfall attempt in the match until literally the finish of the match. It's a very, very unique match. So that's definitely worth going out of your way to watch. They've added English commentary to some classic matches as well. Some unique stuff. It really kind of flew under the radar, but if you've been looking forward to seeing some stuff from way back in the archives, they have the 20th anniversary show match from this is from 1992 from the anniversary show, and it is Antonio Inoki and Osamu Kido versus Riki Choshu and Kengo Kimura. So that's something that I think is, from a historical perspective, worth going back and watching. And really, to me, again, there's a lot of other things they've put up. There's all the talk show battles over the last week or so they've put up with English language commentary, which are fun for sure. The Naito Hiromu stuff that they've put up is absolutely must watch. And then, to me, of anything that's gone up on the network or on NJPWWorld.com since everything's gone down with the shutdown of new shows for New Japan, the documentary, the Okada documentary, which is taking a look at and following him through this past year's G1, the 2019 G1, they upload it with English language commentary, and it is fantastic. I would say if there's one thing that you're looking to spend time on right now, and again, we all have a lot of free time right now, it seems, but it is great. It's behind the scenes, but they still maintain kayfabe. They're not, saying, hey, wrestling's fake, but very, very interesting, very good insight into a guy in Okada that we see a lot of him. We see his personality, but we don't necessarily know a lot about him behind the scenes. And it's very interesting from that perspective. And also it's just a rare glimpse into a little bit of the day-to-day life in terms of being on tour of a Japanese wrestler, of a guy, particularly in New Japan, I should say. You see a little bit of him with the training staff, a little bit of him traveling. And you really get a sense of how much he absolutely loves professional wrestling, and how much that love of wrestling motivates him to do what he does, and it runs deep with him. So, like I said, there's plenty of stuff on New Japan World. We still don't know, and again, I'm recording this on Monday night, so I'm sure after I record this, we'll get some information one way or the other on what's going to happen with Sakura Genesis coming up, because it just feels like that's what always happens when we're waiting on news and we are recording a show, but we don't know anything right now. I mean, it's hard for me to feel overly optimistic that we're going to be having shows from New Japan anytime soon, but maybe I'm reading the tea leaves completely wrong, and I hope I am. Hopefully it's only happening if it's safe to do so, obviously, but not a whole lot to report one way or the other as to how that's leaning. Elsewhere in Japan, I would say that the biggest thing that we're looking forward to and hoping, again, if everything is healthy for it to happen, safe for it to happen, is that All Japan has a major show coming up at Korakuen Hall a week from tonight as I record this next Monday, with Kento Miyahara versus Suwama for the Triple Crown. Kento Miyahara looking to break the record of defenses for the Triple Crown. Also, Susumu Yokosuka taking on Izanagi for the World Junior Heavyweight title, which Susumu's been great, but I shouldn't say this, because that's one of those matches that I'm sure I'm going to be thinking, and then I'm going to go into it and it's going to be great. All the Asia tag titles, I am extremely hyped for this. Jake Lee and Koji Iwamoto taking on Asami Kodaka and Yuko Miyamoto. That should be unique and fantastic. In a lot of ways, we've talked about it a little bit before on this show. The All Asia tag titles, I feel like, get a little bit of short shrift, I guess you could say. To me, they're always unique, interesting matchups that either end up being as good as you'd expect, or sometimes, end up over delivering. So last year, the defense, the challenge for Black Menso Ri and Takawa Mori, which just was on paper not something you would have been overly looking forward to, and it was fantastic. So there's that to look forward to. Also, an 8-man tag with Zeus, Yuma Aoyagi, and Kai taking on Ryuji Sai, Ayato Yoshida, my guy we've talked about for the past couple shows, and Gianni Valletta. So those are certainly teams that exist. And yeah, that leads into what we think maybe will be the Champions Carnival coming up, starting on the 6th. Again, it doesn't feel right necessarily to go into a proper full rundown or a full preview of this, because we don't know if it's going to be happening yet. I mean, we think it's going to, we hope it's going to, but we don't 100% know. It has been announced that X, the replacement for Naoya Nomura, who's out with injury, X will be Yoshihiro Tajiri, which is fine, I guess. I know we all had expectations or hopes of who they could get to replace him, but it makes sense in a lot of ways. He's a guy that's been wrestling in All Japan a lot over the last couple of years. He's a name. He's a guy that was available. So it again, not ideal, but there were worse choices as well. Still, when you look at the blocks, and we got into them briefly on the last show, but Block A, Miyahara, Zeus, Shuji Ishikawa, Yoshitatsu, Yuma Aoyagi, Kai, Joel Redmond, Shigehiro Irie, and Takashi Sugiura. That is just a ridiculous collection of talent when you look at the guys that, again, if this tournament goes off in full and not only happens, but all the shows happen, which both those things, seem maybe unlikely, but you look at Miyahara and all the guys he could have matches with. Obviously, we know he has great matches with Zeus and Ishikawa, the rematch with Aoyagi, singles match with Irie, singles match with Sugiura, which might be right now the match I'm looking forward to more than any other potential match in any company or any show right now. And that, I believe, is scheduled to take place as of now. Well, let's see. The show on the 6th is scheduled to be Miyahara versus Irie, Zeus, and Takashi Sugiura, which, talk about another war. Kai and Joel Redmond, Suwama and Ayato Yoshida, which should be awesome. Jake Lee and Gianni Valletta, which after watching Jake Lee lose in the on the Big Japan Strong Climb show, which we'll get to momentarily, I need to see a Jake Lee victory. Although I will say that on the Big Japan Strong Climb show that I believe was broadcast, yes, Samurai TV, I got to hear Jake Lee's entrance music, which in these trying times made me feel like I could do anything, made me feel like I could face the world. So Jake Lee, Gianni Valletta is a match that will occur. And then Ryuji Sai and Davey Boy Smith Jr., which is intriguing. So let's see here, as Brian would say. Yes, that's right. The Miyahara Sugiura match will take place in Nagoya. As of now, it's scheduled to take place in Nagoya on April 19th. So we'll have a lot of time. We'll definitely be doing another show or two before the 6th. Obviously, at least one more show. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to do, so definitely have more time to do shows. Hopefully Mike will be able to do some with me as well. But as events warrant, I plan on doing as many of these as they'll have because, like I said, not a whole lot else to do, and it helps to be doing something like this. So, like I said, that's the A block and the B block. Suwama, Jake Lee, Ryuji Sai, Gianni Valletta, Hideyoshi Kamitani from Big Japan. Talked about Ayato Yoshida, Lucas Steele, who's getting a big opportunity over these, the last tour and this to take one of those spots that seemingly has been vacated by the likes of Dylan James and Joe Doring not being around, and then Davey Boy Smith Jr., who, it appears as though he's going to be working All Japan fairly regularly. So we have that hopefully to look forward to. Also coming up relatively soon is the big Pro Wrestling Noah show, which has not been canceled yet, so we have to operate under the assumption that it's going to happen until proven otherwise on March 29th. Huge show for a Cork and Hall show. A lot of the matches that were going to be taking place throughout the tour have all been compacted into this one. Main event, Go Shiozaki defending the GHC heavyweight title against Kaz Fujita, which has been built up very well. A GHC national title, which, even though openweight, I don't believe is in the name of the belt, the official name of the championship, this definitely would fit the bill as an openweight title match. Takashi Sugiura and Minoru Tanaka, which a very fun, unique matchup. Also, Kotaro Suzuki and Atsushi Katoge against Hayata and Yohei, and Yoshinari Ogawa defending the GHC junior heavyweight singles title against Daisuke Harada. So we hope to see that show coming up. No guarantee. Other shows that as of now are still scheduled coming up would include, let me get my list right here, the DDT show coming up later this week, March 20th, DDT Judgment 23rd anniversary at Korakuen Hall. As of now, Masato Tanaka defending against Konosuke Takashita, defending the KOD openweight title, I should say. Chris Brooks and Daisuke Sasaki for the Universal title. Marufuji, Naomichi Marufuji of Pro Wrestling Noah, obviously, and Harashima, along with Yuki Ueno, taking on Akito, Yuki Ino, and Royce Chambers. So Shima is also on the show as well, so and his whole crew. So quite a bit going on here. The Iron Man Heavy Metal Title Battle Royal, which includes such luminaries as Toru Owashi, Denshoko Dino, Antonio Honda, and this will probably give us all the laugh that we need right now. So there's that. Other shows, 2AW continues to run. They are scheduled to run as of now in Korakuen Hall on the 25th. Yuji Okabayashi of Big Japan is challenging for the 2AW openweight title against Shu Asakawa. 2AW tag team titles, Ayato Yoshida and Tank Nagai defending against Kaji Tomato and Chango. So that'll be a colorful match. And also noteworthy on this show is that the long-awaited return of Kengo Mishimo, who missed a big opportunity last year due to injury in the Champion Carnival, and a personal favorite of this show and of me. We've talked about him a lot. That show is scheduled for the 25th. Freedom's scheduled currently for the 31st at Korakuen Hall. With Toru Sugiura versus Takumi Tsukamoto for the King of Freedom World title. Daisuke Masuoka returning against Violento Jack. So that's sort of the stuff we have on the docket right now. There's also DDT's been running a bunch of empty arena shows, a bunch of just a bunch of different stuff. There's a current blast death match that took place on Abema TV, which Atsushi Onita was involved in. So you can always you can get your fix that way. Ice Ribbon continues to run shows as well. The other noteworthy thing, very noteworthy, was the Wrestle One show. The final appearance of Keiji Muto in Wrestle One, Ota City General Gymnasium, listed as 1,250 fans, which, honestly, if that's legit, considering A, it's Wrestle One, and B, we're in the middle of the coronavirus epidemic, the fact that they drew, still, maybe 1/3 to 25% full house at Ota, for them, that's not terrible. It's noteworthy mostly because, and this is something we really have to look out for going forward, Gaora TV decided against airing the show. This show was going to be broadcast on Gaora. They decided against airing it because there were fans in the audience. And they, I assume, understandably felt as though the level of safety for their production people, their cameramen, everybody involved on the Gaora side was not up to par. So when you look at some of these other shows that are coming up, particularly whether it be Dragon Gate or several shows, I'm sure on the Champion Carnival Tour that are going to be or scheduled to be broadcast by Gaora, I don't believe there's any plans right now for those to be empty arena shows. So it'll be interesting to see if when we get to that point, if Gaora still broadcasts or if we end up with single camera shoots that All Japan handles on their own end, which if they do, that's fine. It would be safer for everybody involved. And we've seen that the All Japan single camera shoots come off perfectly fine on AJPW.TV. So something to look out for. But yes, Wrestle One, Kaz Hayashi defeated Katsuhiko Nakajima to win back, or to win the Wrestle One title, bring it back into the company fold, just as they're about to fold themselves, I guess, would be the best way to say that, sadly. Daiki Inaba and Koji Doi defeated Shotaro Ashino and Yusuke Kodama to win the tag titles. Seki Yoshioka successfully defended the Cruiserweight title against Heat. And let's see what else. Yuji Okabayashi and Kuma Arashi, which is a match I would have loved to have seen. And then the special 6-man tag match that Keiji Muto was involved in, which was Muto, Ryota Hama, and Yasufume Nakanoe, defeating Masayuki Kono, Ryuji Sai, and Kazuma Sakamoto. So there are only a few shows left for Wrestle One coming up. They have the show at Shinkiba on the 25th. And then the show scheduled to be broadcast by Gaora. So we'll see if the situation changes in terms of them wanting to broadcast or not. And I guess actually looking at this, what was going to be the final Wrestle One show for Keiji Muto just yesterday or today on the 15th, that is not going to be the final Wrestle One show for him, because with the cancellation of all the WrestleCon, all the ancillary events around WrestleMania, Keiji Muto will not be in the States. He will be in Japan. And so he is listed as of now to be in the 8-man tag main event, or I'm assuming the main event. Yeah, probably, if Kaz Hayashi is in it as the champion. The final match for in the history of Wrestle One, as it will be Keiji Muto, Kaz Hayashi, Shuji Kondo, and Masayuki Kono taking on Daiki Inaba, Koji Doi, Shotaro Ashino, and Kuma Arashi. So we wait to see what ends up happening with the remnants of Wrestle One. Any sort of WWE, NXT Japan poking around sort of connection there. We're starting to see, and it's not like these guys didn't work elsewhere, but we're starting to see guys filter out a bit more than they have. We'll talk a little bit about the 0-1 anniversary show on March 1st, which had a heck of a fun match. We saw really in sort of clipped, shortened form, but Shuji Kondo and Sugi had a very fun high flyer versus Junior Haas type of match. So very interested to see how this all pans out. Shotaro Ashino, and we talked about this before, to me, he is he's the gem of the bunch if you're looking to pluck somebody from Wrestle 1. I tend to think he would be a great fit in All Japan. I could see, considering the considerable resources that Pro Wrestling Noah has behind them, I think he would be a fantastic fit there. I mean, you certainly couldn't go wrong with him getting brought into New Japan and sort of being in that never open weight title mix, potentially. But out of anybody there, I think he's probably the guy that is the least to worry about. I mean, outside of the guys that are named, I mean, Kazuhashi will be able to do whatever he wants, guys like that. But Ashino has a pretty darn high ceiling. So there's that show. Other things that have taken place, we talked a little bit about Big Japan. I just watched the March 3rd show, but they just ran the Big Bunka in Yokohama, and it was main evented by Ryuji Ito defeating Abdullah Kobayashi to win the Big Japan Deathmatch Heavyweight title. You could pick your decade as to which when you think this match should have taken place, but it happened. And Daichi Hashimoto, yet again, third defense over Daisuke Sekimoto for the Strong World title. A bunch of other stuff on the show as well, but that was the main stuff from the 25th anniversary show. Samurai TV, so hopefully it'll certainly surface via Samurai TV in whatever means you're able to find those shows sooner than it will on Big Japan Core, which is just now getting around to uploading January shows. So, yeah, we'll see. We talked about a little bit last week that you're seeing the shows that are the companies that can't afford to stop running shows. Those are the ones that are still running shows. So, selfishly, it's great that we're getting to see, we're getting any new wrestling. I'm thrilled. I had said when the Big Japan show for March 3rd came online last week that I pretty much inhaled that show immediately because I was so desperate for new content. But also in the back of your mind, that it's probably not the best thing that companies are having that they can't cancel shows. So there was one other show cancellation I did want to bring up that I believe it's the 29th. 01 was going to be running their annual Yasukuni Shrine show. I believe it was on March 29th, and that show has been canceled. So we'll have to see what goes forward there with 01, if that's just a one-off thing. Big Japan canceled one show as well, but then they moved the Strong Climb shows to Strong Climb matches to their upcoming Shinkiba show. So I think we're at the point to where not every show is getting canceled, but on an individual basis, whether it be a town, a municipality, or a venue, those discussions are taking place and some things aren't happening. So other major companies that we can talk about or that we can sort of touch on, Stardom, there's not really anything at this point on the docket. Shows have been and continue to be canceled. I'm a bit surprised that we haven't gotten any news about another Empty Arena show coming up. I would imagine if we get much further into April, as we're entering into the second half of March. But if it's not looking like they're going to be able to run shows with crowds as we get toward April, I would be surprised, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would be surprised if we don't see another show a la No People Gate. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch that show, I would definitely recommend going back to watch it. I believe it's still up for on-demand watching for free on YouTube. It's also up on Stardom World. On Stardom World, it's split up into single matches. They've got the subtitles for all the pre and post match promos, but it definitely came off, I thought, better than at least the little bit I've seen, the clips I've seen, the stuff I've seen here or there from WWE's Empty Arena shows they've been doing over the last week or so. And I think part of that is because for Stardom and for Joshi shows in general, you've got, a bunch of other wrestlers around the ring that are yelling and pounding the mat and sort of cheering on the wrestlers in the ring a lot of times. And so that additional sound at least makes it seem a little bit less awkward. It's always going to be a little strange when, you've got wrestlers that are doing what they usually do. So they're doing a move, they're hitting a move, then they're appealing to the crowd. Hana Kimura was doing this a lot and the crowd isn't there. But again, it's not as awkward because you at least have the seconds on the outside of the ring that are getting involved. To me, the highlight of this show, and maybe my favorite thing this year, was I would say probably my top 2 or 3 all-time favorite Joshi wrestlers is Momo Nakanishi. And she was on this show as a surprise, and it was amazing. And I did not think I would see her wrestle again anytime soon or anytime at all. So that made me very, very happy. The opening battle royal it certainly is a thing. You had Captain Stardom involved in the match, Mima Shimoda, as I said, Momo Nakanishi, Super Strong Stardom Machine got the victory, and then promptly got obliterated by Natsuko Tora, who was supposed to be in a title match with Arisa Hoshiki, who was out with an injury. Hopefully it is not too serious, particularly with her injury history, so she was not on that show. But we'll see what happens with her going forward. Hopefully that isn't a long-term deal. We had Tokyo Cyber Squad versus Donna Del Mondo with Hana Kimura and Jungle Kiona defeating Julia and Maika. I will just say that the Donna Del Mondo stable, my favorite in wrestling right now. I don't know why, but I just love it. They're great. Julia, again, we talked about before, the way that she found her way to stardom and everything that happened was less than ideal, but to me, she's been a home run. She's been great in her role, and it's been a great opportunity so far for Maika, and she has absolutely stepped up along with Shuri, so that was very good. Goddess of Stardom title match with B. Priestley and Jamie Hayter defeating Momo Watanabe and Utami Hayashishida. A bit of a surprise there, and it looks like we may be seeing the midst of a bit of a break between Momo and Utami. Afterwards, Utami appealed for another title match, but not a rematch with Momo as his partner. Instead, Tall Saya is going to be involved in this Saya Kamitani. So that's what it looks like we are going to be seeing going forward for the Goddess of Stardom tag team titles. And then the main event, the Lumberjack match, Mayu Iwatani defeating Saki Kashima, non-title. This was awesome. It was intense. A lot of crowd brawling there. I should say arena brawling. They didn't brawl through the crowd. Mayu with a couple crazy dives, one of which is now immortalized as the cover shot for that week's edition of Weekly Pro, which that's the second cover for Mayu in a relatively short amount of time, partially necessitated by the fact that there are very few shows of major importance going on, but still great shot of her doing a dive off the I don't know if you call it the balcony, but out in the if there are cheap seats at Korakuen Hall, just a great shot of that. The finishing sequence with Mayu just absolutely obliterating Saki Kashima with kicks, and the way that that Kashima sold everything was just fantastic. So that was the No People Gate show, and like I said, we await whatever will come with Stardom and when we will see more shows from them, hopefully relatively soon. Other shows that I've watched, there haven't been many, but other shows that I've watched, when I say there haven't been many, it hasn't been for a lack of me wanting to watch them. It's just, again, the situation being what it is, there haven't been many shows to watch. That said, the 01 anniversary show on the 1st, a hell of a show if you get a chance to watch it. As I mentioned, the Shuji Kondo Sugi match, 10:22, it was clipped up quite a bit, but the fairly exciting stuff you still get to see. It's a very fun. If 01 had a weekly American style TV show, I would describe this as a very fun TV match. Also, Toa Iwasaki and Sugataka Sato defeating Shinjiro Otani and Tetsuhito Takaiwa. This was really fun, really good, and a bit of a surprise with Iwasaki defeating Takaiwa. Moving forward there, push-wise, the match of the night, and I would say a match of the year candidate, Masato Tanaka and Takashi Sugiura versus Daisuke Sekimoto and Yuji Okabayashi. They just beat the hell out of each other. It was a 30-minute draw. To me, if a 30-minute match can be a sprint, that's what this felt like. This was a 30-minute Masato Tanaka sprint type of match. It was great. It was, again, going into it, even if you didn't know that ahead of time that was a time limit draw, you look at the guys involved, their places and their stations in all the companies that they wrestle in. A lot of championship gold spread throughout this match. There wasn't an obvious or easy fall guy, and so you figured 30-minute draw, pretty likely. Sometimes that can be a little bit deflating when you kind of know that going in, but I didn't think that was the case at all. The exchanges throughout, particularly Okabayashi and Sugiura, I would love to see a lot more of those two guys against each other. I would say if you're looking for anything out of these few shows from, the 0-1 and the Big Japan show, from a couple days apart of each other, I would say this match, Tanaka and Sugiura versus Sekimoto and Okabayashi, would be the one to absolutely go out of your way to watch. Then the main event, Kohei Sato defeats Yuji Hino to win the 0-1 World Heavyweight title. This was damn good too. It's definitely worth a watch. I really like Yuji Hino. We've talked about before on this show that him as the world champion of a company might not be the best fit. I like him. I think he might be one of those guys that, you might be better off going out and finding a partner and doing a long-term tag team deal a la, a Violence Giants type of thing with Suwama, like we've seen with Suwama and Shuji Ishikawa. Still very, very good, though. And Kohei Sato, to me, I don't know about you, but he's terrifying, and the older and the more, I guess the older he looks physically, the more he's just a terrifying human being to me. There's just something about that guy that he clearly does not care. He came into this match with what I can only describe as, it looked like someone had hit him in the forehead with an axe and it had just barely started to heal. That's how he looked at the start of this match. Of course, they exchanged disturbing headbutts, which you'd rather not see, but you can't say you're all that surprised, actually happened. And yeah, Kohei Sato gets the win with the German suplex hold. So that's that on the 0-1 front. There was also, if I can pull up here, make sure I have the results correct ahead of me, or in front of me. The Big Japan show, Strong Climb show from Korakuen Hall on March 1st, which, by the way, if we're looking at attendance at some of these shows, 0-1 drew 682 people at Korakuen on March 1st for the 19th anniversary show. And I believe, as I'm pulling up the Big Japan info here, that the Big Japan show at Korakuen Hall drew, let's see here, give me a second. It drew 565 fans, which again, obviously very much impacted by the COVID-19 coronavirus situation. And again, clearly they feel as though they don't have a choice but to run these shows. Main event, Big Japan tag titles, Daisuke Sekimoto teaming with Kohei Sato versus Yuji Okabayashi and Shigehiro Irie. This was very good. I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't say that it was on the level of the tag match from the 0-1 show, but still definitely worth watching. Strong Climb matches, I would almost have to go back and watch this, and maybe it was just because I was so desperate for new content, but I actually really enjoyed Daichi Hashimoto and Yoshiki Inamura. 1451, it was definitely slower paced than a lot of matches you see these days, but I don't know. It was simple. Wasn't anything crazy, but I thought Hashimoto, by his standards, looked good. I thought Inamura looked great, and it was fun to see him. It's really good to see him mix it up with different guys. I'd say by far to me, the low point on this show was seeing Kazumi Kikuta defeat Jake Lee in under 10 minutes with a right high kick. We'll see how that plays out for the rest of the tournament. If the tournament is able to finish, hopefully it is. But I was hoping for a different result here for my guy, Jake Lee. Yuji Hino and Ryota Hama. I mean, it's going to be extremely limited because Ryota Hama is extremely limited, and that's understandable given his size. But the power bomb out of the corner from Yuji Hino on Ryota Hama, which was the finish of this match, was about as impressive as you're ever going to see in terms of a physical feat of strength in a professional wrestling ring. It was quite the deal. The GIFs are floating around all over, so I'm sure you can find it if you're not able to watch the full show. I also really enjoyed Ryuichi Kawakami and T-Hawk. Kawakami got the win in that one. And then Quiet Storm and Hideyoshi Kamitani occurred as well on this show. So as far as modern things to watch and things that we can talk about that I can think of right now as I record this show, that's about it. Apparently WrestleMania is going to happen in an empty arena. I just saw that as I was pulling up the Big Japan results. So that's a decision that was made, I guess. Yeah, that's going to be exceedingly strange, but nothing about the world right now isn't, so I guess that fits in. Other things, I don't know if you guys have any interest in me watching particular things, or me and Mike watching particular things and talking about it on the show. What I've been doing, I can just say, is going back through the great New Japan World recommended matches spreadsheet and watching a ton of stuff on there. Really starting, I'm starting with stuff from 1980, which is actually a year before I was born, which is hard to believe that A, that was born that long ago, and B, that there's, a lot of stuff to watch on New Japan World from that time period. But we talked about a little bit with the archives of New Japan World. You kind of forget because they don't make a big deal about adding a lot of stuff to the really older content. You kind of forget the gems that are there and how much there really is to go back and explore. I think a lot of it is that we all have complaints about certain eras that we wish there was more of, was more well represented in the archives, but there's a lot of good stuff to go back and watch. What I've been focusing a lot on is going back and watching early sort of junior heavyweight Fujinami. Going back and watching, I watched Fujinami and Dynamite Kid from February 5th, 1980. Fujinami and Ashura Hara from April of that year. Just watched Fujinami and Chavo Guerrero from May of 1980, which is really good. Watching the Inoki Hansen matches, which is also very, very entertaining. And it's, again, you have to get your mind in the right spot. If you're going back and watching a wrestling match, even a wrestling match from Japan in 1980, there's going to be more downtime. It's not going to be a Masato Tanaka sprint. It's not going to be, it's not going to be Will Ospreay and Shingo Takagi. Nothing is really. But it's, there's going to be a lot of working holds, and then you're going to have, a few moments of explosiveness that absolutely still, hold up and could match up with, some of the top guys you're seeing today. So it's, if you can get yourself in the right mindset for it, it's definitely worth going back and exploring some of that older stuff. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and then delving into, I have, I've had for a long time. I haven't gone back and watched in a while, but, DVD sets of Misawa versus Kobashi, of Misawa versus Kawada, of, every permutation of those guys. DVD set of the best tag matches of Kawada and Taue teaming. So those sorts of things that, as we try to sort of stave off the darkness of this almost impossible to comprehend situation that we find ourselves in here, particularly for, first person, for me here in the United States and Chicago and around the world. Obviously there are places that have it much worse than we do right now. Italy, Spain, China went through, a horrendous period that they seem to be starting to come out of. So all I can say as well, just without being too, new agey or whatever, is just that, for everybody who's listening to, and everybody who does listen to our show, that A, we appreciate it greatly, and B, that just take care of yourselves as much as you can. This is going to be, and it is, a really, really weird time right now, and I think for all of us, it's going to affect us in different ways. First and foremost, it's going to affect everybody who it has to deal with the physical issues of getting the coronavirus, people who, have family members, people who have friends, and just down the line, depending on the type of fields you work in. None of us are not going to be affected by this. So just do the best you can to take care of yourself and, and take time for yourself, because this is, it's going to be tough, and just, it's something that hopefully all in our own ways, and also supporting each other, that we can all get through together. So I'll stop rambling here. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate having the opportunity to do this show. I look forward to doing the show with Mike in the coming days and weeks, and getting back on the horse on that side as well, because there's not a lot of things that make life feel normal right now, and doing this show and watching wrestling and all this sort of stuff is one of the things that does. So I appreciate everybody for listening, and we will be back soon. I guarantee it.